Would you like a tarot reading? This is going to be a general tarot reading with no claiming required. I don't believe in claiming. I think it's engagement bait. I don't think any sort of interaction locks in a message. I think in order for a message to really be for you, it should resonate. And if it doesn't resonate, then it's not meant for you. At least that's my belief. I like to keep it pretty simple. For general readings, of course, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and don't force anything to fit. Okay? I just want to get right into the reading. I just want to see what the cards have to say. I feel kind of excited for this one. So let's get started. Okay, we have the Two of Wands coming out here. Something about making a decision, finally taking action. Magician at the bottom of the deck there. You have all of the tools at your disposal to begin. You may not know exactly how far you will go. You may not know how far you can go, but you can at least make your way past the starting line. What's going on with this Two of Wands? Quite a few cards here. We have the Five of Pentacles with the Lovers, the Ten of Wands, as well as the Star card. Okay. So there does seem to be a sense of overwhelm that can lead to feeling helpless, feeling hopeless. I think we need to be inspired. I think we need to start remembering that, what am I trying to say here? I feel like I'm trying to say two things at once, and they don't mesh well. Meaning like they just don't, I'm mushing them up and it's not coming out the way that I write. Okay, so, right, with this overwhelm, with this sense of dread, with this with this inability to really be able to see the world around us and to get a larger picture, not being able to step away from being so laser focused on, what we need to do and all of the burdens that we hold and all of the responsibilities that we bear. I think that with the Lovers and the Star here, for me, this just says, hey, we need to start making choices that inspire us. We need to start making choices from inspiration and not necessarily from necessity. Because choices from necessity, it just feels like, well, that's what's needed. That's what the situation calls for, and it doesn't really feel like we're making a choice. It just mainly feels like it's more as if we're falling in line. When it comes to making choices, there is this there should be this feeling of autonomy, right? You should be able to have a sense of agency. And this hesitation to make a decision, this hesitation to start walking down a path, can be from this lack of agency. So I feel like making more, like I said, inspired and inspiring choices can really help you get out of this sort of overwhelm, this sort of hopelessness. The light has not gone out. The darkness has maybe been creeping up, but the light has not been extinguished. Maybe it's hard to see, maybe it's hard to find, maybe you are too far back in order to see the light at the end of this tunnel. But you only get closer if you start taking steps, if you start moving forward, right? If you start taking action. I saw that Two of Swords there and this Eight of Cups here. I saw that. It can be quite difficult to come to terms with just how much this weighs on us, thinking that, oh, well, I've become too jaded, or I've, become just so, like, it's so not important to me anymore, this, that, and the other thing. It's easy to convince ourselves that we don't care, or that it doesn't impact us, or that it doesn't hurt us as much as it does. But it does, right? It still does hurt. You may not want to feel this sense of disappointment in yourself. You may not want to feel a sense of disappointment in life. You may not want to come to face, the fact that, there is this feeling of being behind, or slacking, or being stuck, and just sort of, finding yourself in a position where, wow, my lack of movement has caused this stagnation. I am feeling called to take 2, 3, 4, 5. Read this one and the third. Okay. The Queen of Pentacles and the Moon. It may be time to do some shadow work. It may be time to start really paying attention to how you are being called to nurture yourself. Even if it feels a bit outdated, right? If it feels like, well, I haven't done this since I was a kid. Well, I haven't, watched that. I haven't, gone here. I haven't done this since that. There doesn't need to necessarily be a rhyme or reason to what you feel called towards. There seems to be, if you are feeling this sense of needing to be more grounded, of needing to be more collected, being more nourished by yourself, there could be an underlying reason, something that you may not be aware of. This is a time where you need to just really, really trust that what you are being called towards is not going to be for naught, if that makes much sense. Also, side note, my nails and the moon card. Hello. Love that. I definitely feel like if you are being called to nurture yourself in a certain way, if you're being called to really take ownership, it feels like, to take this sense of autonomy back, and if you're feeling a bit scared, dive into that, maybe use that as a journal prompt, or maybe talk to yourself in the mirror or something, or just really sit and just say, why am I afraid to step into this role, into this leadership? Why am I afraid of taking control? Does that mean that I will, now be held accountable? Does that mean more responsibility? Why is that so scary to me? Why do I feel like I can't do this? What has created this doubt? I don't have that answer for you because I'm not you. But if this is something that does resonate with you, if this is quite hitting the nail on the head, then I encourage you to look at this. And, it's not going to be easy. These are very, I don't want to say undesirable, but these are very hard aspects of ourselves to have a look at, right? Because the moon talks about the shadowy side of things. It talks about what's hidden. It talks about, that deep side of ourselves that we keep stashed away, we don't want to think about. But that's why shadow work is so important, because then, we can, if we learn to love, if we learn to accept, if we even just acknowledge that we have these aspects of ourselves that we may not really like, or we have these qualities that we're ashamed of. Just acknowledging them can make them feel a bit lighter. We can then recognize the humanity that lies within us, and it can be a lot easier for us to meet ourselves with grace and with compassion. And we can learn to, apply the same sort of care that we give others to ourselves. So then we can start treating ourselves like a friend, like a loved one. And with that, things can feel a little bit easier because we're being nicer to ourselves and we're being more understanding and we're not putting as much pressure. We're not feeling so overwhelmed, right? It's saying, hey, we can take this one step at a time. You don't need to cross the finish line as soon as you leave from the starting line. You're not expected to just go in one. It's a process. It's a journey. Let's look at these other cards here. The King of Swords and the Three of Cups. Okay. Temperance and Wheel of Fortune. I feel like this is a really good time to connect with others. Sorry about that. Had to take a quick pause. But as I said, right, this could be a really great time for you to start connecting with others, to be more open about what you've been thinking, what you've been going through, sharing your ideas, sharing your philosophies, right? Presenting your story not as, just, a maybe, just this is something that might be affecting me, but being able to say, look, this is what, this is something that's been impacting me. This is something that, I've gone through. I've lived this experience enough to say, yes, this is what this is. It can really help connecting with others, or connecting with others rather, can help with developing this sense of confidence. Because they can give you some reassurance that you may be needing. They can even perhaps share stories of their own, of feeling this way, or dealing with, their own struggles of the same, sort of intensity. And you can, then see that, wow, everybody goes through something like this, if not the same, like I said, the same degree, but perhaps a different way. Everybody has their own unique way of dealing with hardship in their lives. With the Wheel of Fortune and Temperance here, this sort of coming together with folks, finding a sense of community, finding, this, I want to say friendship, but you don't just need friends, right? This community can be anybody, right? It could be groups, it could be family, it could be loved ones, whatever, right? A sense of community can come from anyone, anywhere, anytime. It could be a stranger on the street, maybe a stranger in the park. They're sitting on a park bench and you feel just so drawn to talk to them. And, if they're receptive of communication, or if they're receptive to communicating with you, then, who knows. But anyway, with Wheel of Fortune and Temperance here, just developing a sense, finding your community, finding, people to share, not just even with, if this feels all too heavy, even just going on the lighter end, finding people who are into the same hobbies as you, or, finding a support group, finding, people, clubs, whatever that come and meet at a local coffee shop or the local library, groups that meet on a monthly, a weekly, schedule perhaps. This can really help boost your, not necessarily morale. I don't know why boost your morale, but maybe boost your morale for your own life, right? That can really help. It can help make you feel a bit more balanced. It can it can help make you feel a bit more a part of something bigger. You know, when your own life feels very overwhelming, it could be easier for you to then focus on, you know, more of a group effort. You know, you can find yourself feeling a bit more fulfilled, even a bit more balanced, because when you share stories with others and they're receptive of you and they feel safe enough to share their own experiences with you, you create this environment for yourself that that is like its own inspiration. You know, you feel inspired to connect, and then that connection brings further inspiration. You know, you start saying, well, if they could do it, then I can do it. If they could move through this, then I can move through my thing. So I feel like a really, really great start would, like I said earlier, to do that shadow work, kind of ask yourself why you may be afraid to start. And then maybe, you know, even find a way to reach out to others and to, you know, say, do you have the space to get deep, to hear what I have to say, because this is a very vulnerable thing. And the more that we practice vulnerability, the easier it is the easier being vulnerable will become for us. Let's see what the bottom of the deck has to say. Here we go, 10 of Pentacles. Definitely, definitely, definitely. It is so very important for a sense of community to be here. And also, we have the 10 of Pentacles here, right? We had the 10 of Wands earlier, and also the Wheel of Fortune, number 10. So there definitely is this, because number 10 in the tarot, it represents like the finalizations almost. So I feel like whenever you are able to find the community that you're supposed to be with, when you find yourself in a group where you are seen, where you are heard, you know, things can feel a lot lighter. The world doesn't feel so heavy. Your own personal world doesn't seem so heavy. And so I feel like this could be, you know, close to, do I want to use the word breakthrough? I'm not exactly sure. But you could definitely have an easier time getting over the hump, if that makes much sense. Let's see what the top of the deck has to say. Whoa, 4 tens, the 10 of Swords. Wow. I'm not laughing at this by any means. It's just, wow. The 10 of Swords here to say that, you know, you are not supposed to be so neglectful of feeling your feelings, right? We are emotional human beings. We have these feelings inside of us, whether we want to acknowledge them or not. For some people, they're completely fine with just being like, yep, it's just a thing, whatever. But other people have a much harder time, especially when they feel driven by emotion, when they feel that their feelings are the thing that drives their little horse and buggy. Well, not so much horses, because that would be the things driving it. The horses would be the emotions, right? But anyway, it's just whenever you start to feel like, you know, you're starting to get a bit apathetic, you're starting to get a bit hopeless, helpless, uninspired, you know, this is a really, really great time, a really great signal that this is a really great time for you to connect with others, that you need community now more than ever. And, you know, being able to sustain, you know, having a sense of community can really keep these hopeless, doubtful feelings from entering again, and it will help you feel more fluid to move, or more free to move. I don't know why I use the word fluid, but yeah, it will just generally be a more balanced internal ecosystem, as well as external perhaps, but, you know, emotional regulation with others, I guess, is a great way to summarize this. So yeah, this is all that I'm being called to pull for this reading. So I hope that however this reading found you, it leaves you feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit aha-ier. Yeah, so good luck with everything, and just take it day by day, one step at a time. You're not meant to have everything figured out right now, because frankly, it feels very impossible to have everything squared away every given moment. Right. Okay. Best of luck. Best wishes. Thanks for tuning in.